Hello, everybody. This, why are you laughing? This is TBI Talk, and I am your host, Lindy Boone Michaelis. And this is a very special episode of TBI Talk because I have my sisters with me, all three of my sisters, and I want to get into a conversation with them about the extended family after a traumatic brain injury. And they were so intimately involved after the brain injury of my son, Ryan, after he fell through a skylight. And I know that there's a lot of people that are listening that maybe aren't in the nuclear family, but they're interested in learning, and they often are kind of ignored too. Everybody focuses on the one that got hurt. Everyone focuses on the immediate family, but this is like an explosion that goes off and it has a ripple effect. But before we start talking about that, I want to introduce, or at least have my sisters introduce themselves. So I'm going to go down the line, and if you'll just give your name, where you live, your age, no, your phone numbers, that kind of stuff. No, really, really, what I want you to do is share your name, where you're from, and something new that you're experiencing or into right now.
All righty. I guess you're starting with me since I'm the oldest.
Yes, Sherry, you're the oldest. We go down the line.
All right. So I'm Cherry O'Neill. I have 5 kids. They're adults now. I live in
that.
yeah. I live in the Northwest, near Seattle. And my husband and I just moved into a 55 plus community after living in our home for 37 years. And I am now learning how to play drums to play in the band. That is the resident band here. So
That's something new. I know. Oh, people don't know that about you. Okay, I'm gonna say, you all know me. I'm Lindy. I live in Orange County, and I just made my first loaf of sourdough bread last week, and it was delicious. You're up, Debbie.
I am Debbie, and I live in the San Fernando Valley. And the new thing that I'm working on is getting everything ready to have a big baby shower. My daughter is expecting in June, so this will be my 5th grandchild. And she hasn't seen this yet, but I
did that.
Oh my gosh.
What one?
I know.
Okay,
Lori
and everything.
All right. And this is Lori.
Lori Browning. I live with my husband, Aaron Kev, retired chiropractor, and I'm a retired teacher. And we're in Colorado. I have 3 children, 5 grandkids, 2 grand dogs. And I just went back to subbing, which is completely insane, but I'm substitute teaching after retiring from being an English teacher.
Okay.
Well, that's out there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed that I just baked bread, but
been writing songs. Don't sell yourself.
Oh, okay. We'll mention that at the end. But you guys, I love you so much, and you guys are my best friends. We're very close. Cherry, the oldest, and Lori, the youngest. There's only 3.5 years between us, and we don't have any twins in this generation. Debbie and Lori both have twin kids, but we're very close, and not just chronologically, but we've just have maintained our relationship and friendship very tight. And I'm grateful for Zoom because we've been able to have these Zoom calls But let's go ahead and start talking about 22 years ago. It's really going on 23. And we all learned on June 19th that Ryan had this terrible fall through a skylight, and his life hung in the balance for a long time. And we've lived with him having a severe brain injury for all this time. But Cherry, I just want to start with you, and can you go back to those days, those early days, and tell me what it was like for you as a family member?
Yeah. I think, you immediately empathize and feel, that what would you do if you had that experience yourself? How would you react? And so I was empathizing with you, but I was also feeling for Ryan. My kids were, they were worried about their cousin. The two oldest kids came with me down to LA to see Ryan in the hospital when he was in intensive care, like the day or two after he had had the accident. They wanted to be there. They wanted to see him. They wanted to talk to him. Even though he was in a coma, they wanted to try and connect with him somehow. And that was really all we could think of, was we just wanted to make a connection with him and with you. We wanted to be there to support you guys and to pray and to just be as present as we could at a time of crisis for the whole family.
Right. Because at that time, he had tubes coming out of every part of his body, and he wasn't able to speak or relate to us in any way. And they had told our mother, don't get your hopes up.
Mhm.
It was that dire. His kidneys were at risk of failing, and his lungs had collapsed. I didn't know it at the time, Cherry. I don't know if you ever heard it, but his heart had stopped and they'd had to start his heart.
I
So,
think I did hear that. Yeah.
right.
That
But
they had had to revive him a couple of times that first night. Yeah.
and so it meant the world to me that I had family in the waiting room with me, and that you
Mhm.
guys came down. So the show of support from family is so important. But from your perspective too, it just was probably surreal. You
Oh,
came
yeah.
another time, Cherry, and you brought him a gift.
Yes, I did. I had started knitting back at the time. Speaking of, don't do nearly as ambitious stuff as Debbie does. Everything I do is flat. And so it's either a scarf or a blanket. And so I made Ryan a blanket. And being a rather large fellow, it was a very big blanket. But I felt like, in a way, that as I was knitting each stitch, it was like saying a prayer. And it was made me very mindful of what he was going through and what we as a family were going through in the support of him. And it literally felt like this gift for his, I think it was his 25th birthday, that it was, every stitch was a little mini prayer that I was stitching into the blanket. And
That's
it
sweet.
was, yeah, it was really a precious, precious time thinking about him, the whole time I was making it.
Right. Yes. And I remember even your daughter Kylie came down for a little while too. And um, since then, how has it been to watch Ryan's progress?
It's absolutely mind-blowing to see that so much of the old Ryan is still there, even though he might not be able to access certain things all the time. Like, the fact that he still has trouble walking on his own and things like that. But there's still his music trivia knowledge, his film knowledge, his knowledge of actors and actresses, because that's what he was passionate about at the time of the accident. That's what he wanted to go into. And so all of those things were so fresh in his mind at the time of his accident. And that didn't go away. That's still there. If you ask Ryan the name of a song or who's singing it, or ask him to sing a lyric, or, who's that actor that's in that movie, he'll tell you. And
Yeah.
it's just absolutely amazing that our brains are so intricately and miraculously fabricated that, we might not be able to remember what we had for dinner, but I can tell you who was in that movie. And they were not only in that movie, but they were in these three other movies too. It's
Yeah.
like, how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. We sure learn a lot about the brain. We didn't think we were going to be finding out. He is able to do that now, but it took so long. I mean, years before we knew that though that was still in his brain. He still had access to it.
Mhm.
It was a limbo, wasn't it? It was just not knowing what was going to happen next. And
Right.
so,
But being thrilled and so pleasantly surprised when he would do something like give you a kiss or say his first few words, or just call out mom, or one of those things that you take for granted every day under normal circumstances. And yet in that situation, it's like a miracle to hear him call you mom, or
yeah,
to have him kiss you on the cheek because he's been in a coma for 4 months and now he's finally responding. So
it was wonderful for me to know that he could recognize you guys. And
right.
when finally, he could communicate, which took such a long time, that he identify each of you and call you by name. Or if I said, I'm going to go see Aunt Cherry, he'll say, he still always does, well, tell Aunt Cherry I love her, or whoever I am visit you guys.
Hey, I see a picture of that blanket.
Oh yeah, I gave them that. I hoped that they would show. Those were his Pepperdine colors.
Right.
Oh, you had to make it very large.
This is true. You guys, I'm going to take a little break. This is a good time to pause, but I hope everybody will stay with us. I have a lot more to share with my sisters, their perspectives. So don't go away. So we're back, and I'm here with my 3 sisters, Jerry and Debbie and Lori, and I'm asking them to share about their experience when their nephew incurred a brain injury. I've talked about my experience as a mom, and I've had other guests on, but I think the extended family should be talked about and what it's like for them. And there's a lot of people that really want to know how they can help and how they can be supportive. Lori, I'm going to ask you the same thing. What was it like for you? And let's have a conversation around that.
Sure. It's almost hard to put myself into the picture because the people who are experiencing it up close were having an entirely different experience than I was. I was in Colorado with my kids. I was teaching part-time, but I just remember the shock of it. I feel like I should put a dunce cap on for how slow I was to respond appropriately. There's something that happens, I think, to you when somebody near you has that kind of tragedy hit, and you're trying to survive. You're trying to keep breathing. And I just know I kind of froze. It seemed so big. I didn't really know what to do. And I stumbled across an article a couple of weeks ago at just the right time. Someone I love had lost their mother. And the article said 5 things not to say to someone who's experienced loss. And I was interested in that moment in particular. And what the last piece of advice was, don't say, hey, if you need anything or if you want to talk, give me a call. Because the person who's going through it needs people to reach out to them, be given the assignment. Hey, take inventory of what you want people to bring to the table. So I feel that's why the dunce cap. I feel like I just didn't know that. And I was kind of waiting for like, what can I do? How can I help? And then your smart husband, Mike, gave me a call in Colorado. And he said, your sister's really going through an incredibly tough moment right now. It was not that far in. You were constantly in the hospital. Everything was life and death. There were horrible things happening all the time, and you weren't sure you were going to make it through a day. And the reality of it was hitting pretty hard. And I just remember Mike calling and saying she could really use her sister. And right now I want to just get on a plane. And so I did. And he wanted to kind of keep it a secret. I'm not sure why. It wasn't like a woo-hoo celebration when I came in. But he picked me up at the airport and I came in. And he said, she's up in the room. Just go say hi. And I could lose it right now, but I wasn't. I came upstairs and it was really dark. And this Lindy I didn't know was laying in bed with the curtains drawn. And I think you were trying to sleep, probably been not enough sleep over that time. And I came around the corner and just showed you that I was standing there and you just lost it and started crying.
Yeah.
And at least I felt like I was present. I was finally showing up. And I thank Mike for that. I mean, what was it like for you to see your sister suddenly creeping around the corner?
It was amazing. And the backstory of that, I think I have time to tell it, is um grief kind of creeps in little by little. And so I was in shock too, and not knowing how to feel or respond. And little by little, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it felt like I got hit with grief at different times. And that morning, I had experienced what I think now I recognize as a primal scream, just getting ready to go to the hospital one more day and see Ryan in the condition he was in. And I felt the grief come through my toes and up my body and out my mouth in a scream I didn't know I was capable of. And it was so disturbing to me that I grabbed a washcloth and muffled the scream because I didn't want Tyler to hear it in another room. And Mike came and put his arms around me and held me. And he said, "It's going to be okay." And I was just shaking, saying, "I don't know if it's going to be okay." So that was the day he said, "Please don't go to the hospital. Stay home. Take a day off." And it was in that context that by the end of the day, the door opening a crack and seeing your face, I not only knew how much you loved me, how much your husband understood me and knew what I needed. It's hard to talk about, but it's important. This is what I wanted to do, is to have you guys on to get real about how it affects everybody. And it's not your fault, Lori. I never for once thought, where is Lori? I thought she lives in Colorado. She's busy. You were there for me on the phone. You aren't absent. But just to be willing to jump on a plane at Mike's request. And I'd seen Debbie often, and Sherry had been there a couple times. I hadn't seen you yet. And I just think that was the medicine that I needed on that day. And you lifted. You
Yay, Mike. Because really, I mean, I'll tell you what, if it happened again, I'd be on a plane. Taught me. It taught me. You don't have to do anything. You just have to show up. I mean, maybe there are things to do, but that wasn't the point. It was being there.
That is absolutely true. And again, I didn't have expectations of people. My very best friend really had a hard time showing up for the first year. And it's so funny, I was not upset because when she could, she showed up and she's been around and able to deal with it. But up until then, she was so frozen too. She said, "Lindy, I just didn't know what to say." She felt so ill-equipped. And I know that
we're supposed to know. I mean,
yeah.
there are so many things that can happen at any given time. How would we? No, I mean, it's just trial and error and love,
Yeah.
bringing love to it.
Yeah. And you guys have been there through the hardest of times. And now Ryan is better. And Lori, you did reach out to him in the sweetest of ways. I'd love you to share how you tried to connect with him on music.
I really did want to form connection with him, and I wasn't sure how. And that kind of kept me a little bit mute. But I came back to Colorado, and I think it was a couple of years later that I thought, you know, he used to just love music so much. And I remembered the kind of stuff like, is it Bib Bev DeVoe or something like that?
Belle Bev DeVoe.
That, thank you. Oh man, I blew that one. But I just remember looking up songs, and I would send Lindy a message. I would send you a message, and it would have gaps in it. And so I would ask you to read it to him, and you would record it for me so I could actually see him doing it. And you'd read some of the lines and just go and, you know, leave it open for him, and he'd say it. He'd say the rest of the lyric. And sometimes he'd even sing it. And all of a sudden I felt like, oh my gosh, there's a bridge here. There's a way. And I'm still getting chills because it gave me so much joy to watch him connect and smile when he connected.
That was the teacher in you, I think, that you were looking for.
Now fill in the blank.
I did not make him do a worksheet.
But yeah, we just gave him an A+.
I thought you were very gracious to let me play that game with him because it was another thing on your plate, but thank you.
Not at all. My pleasure. Well, listen, it is time. I need to take another break, but thank you so much, Lori, for sharing all of that. And I'm going to bring Debbie in next, so please don't go away. Well, welcome back. This is TBI Talk. I'm Lindy Boone Michaelis, and we are talking to my three sisters about the experience of traumatic brain injury when you're part of the extended family. And so these three sisters of mine have their own perspectives, and I'm just asking them individually what it was like for them. And Debbie had the most exposure to this whole thing because she lives close. And man, she was the one who picked me up from the airport after I got the call. She's the one who called me in Spain. And Mike and I and Tyler were on vacation there. And hers was the voice. She had to come up with the words to say, your son has fallen through a skylight. And he's in the ICU at the UCLA Medical Center. So, Debbie, I want you to start there and just tell me how you found out. And you knew before I did.
I did. And I, of course, remember making that call, which was a very difficult call to make. What I don't remember is who told me. Was it me? It might have been Mama who was on her way to the hospital and said, you're going to need to do this. I think that might be how it happened. So I had to just, I mean, every mother's worst nightmare is have something like this happen to one of your kids. And I had to be the one to tell you. And I hated to do it, but I also felt a real responsibility to not make you more afraid than you needed to be, because there was nothing you could do from so far away. You had a long trip home. And I didn't want to frighten you. We didn't really have the details then anyway.
Right.
But I felt almost like a grace to have a calm when I called you, so that I don't think, at least in my memory, I don't think I contributed to any drama around it, but just telling you, this has happened. You need to get on a plane and get back here, and Mama's on her way, and we're here, And then, once I got more of a picture of how serious it was, and I was going to pick you up at the airport, I didn't want to downplay so much because you were going to walk in a room and see Ryan. And I wanted you to have some preparation. And that was another difficult time that I felt, how do I just let her know? Like, you got to brace yourself. Ryan doesn't look like Ryan, and they're doing everything in their power to strengthen him and bring him through this. And of course, not knowing if that was going to be a possibility, but I just didn't want you, I had seen him, so I didn't want you to have an expectation. And how do you prepare a mother to see that? You can't.
I wouldn't have wanted that task at all. And yet, I look back on it and I remember your voice was steady on the phone. And you said, and I'm going to stay home, Lindy, so that Mama, she's at the hospital, she'll update me so that when you need to call and get information off of the 3 flights that I had, I would stop and I could call.
Yeah.
So Debbie was there to answer the phone, and she knew a little bit more each time. And each time it became more serious to me. She said they're trying to get him to a CAT scan, but they have to turn him around and bring him back because he can't stay off the ventilator long enough to get a CAT scan. So I learned that en route. Debbie's voice was always calm. I mean, it really was miraculous how you were able to just give me information and not sound as panicked as you might have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you picked me up and you were calm.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel and that was all a gift in the moment. And I don't think I will ever forget, and I will always treasure those weeks and really months, but the first weeks with the waiting room and the intensive care, um, and just needing to be with you. I didn't want to be anywhere else. I had a family and things going on, but I was minimizing anything that would take me away from being in that room. I think we all just needed each other so much to process this and to help hold each other up. Um, because of course, the real weight of it was on you. Uh, but all of us had the weight of loving you so much and hating that you were going to have to face something like this. And how could we possibly support you? We loved Ryan and we were mortified that he was going through what he was going through. But I really felt like my my focus needed to be on how I could be with you and help you do what you had to do in those really horrendous weeks with like life and death things happening constantly.
Absolutely. And I know that you brought hymnals that we could sing from. And I remember thinking, I wouldn't have thought of that, but boy, was it comforting. You don't really have embarrassment in a waiting room. We started singing and I didn't really care who was around and if it was bothering anybody. It was just the most wonderful thing for our family who grew up singing these hymns and to go back to them, to our roots and sing together and harmonize the songs that we grew up with that were just entering uh, the presence of God at that time. Very just a divine inspired idea that you had to bring that. And Debbie would journal, and I want you to share. Um, she would share with me things in her journal just from time to time. And I can't tell you how many times she would send me something that she had written in her journal, and it would be just, oh, the biggest comfort. And so, can you share what
Yeah.
you wrote? This was actually the afterword, but it was from a journal entry, the
Right.
after my book that I wrote.
Yeah. So
Okay. Explain.
I'm reading it off my phone, just part of the afterword, because it has to do with those first weeks in the waiting room of the hospital. So I'll just read you a little bit of it because it's too long for this purpose. But I wrote just after Lindy finished writing her book, she rediscovered a journal entry I had sent her 1 month after Ryan had his accident. I would like to share a little of it with you because it's coming from a perspective Lindy did not have did not have access to, someone watching her go through the unimaginable. I was experiencing a vulnerability I had never felt before Ryan's fall. I had become acutely aware of what a friend of mine once called the paper thinness of life. During that time, I stayed at my own home to sleep and did only what absolutely had to be done. The rest of the time, I wanted to be in the waiting room at UCLA. And this is from my journal. Amidst the pain and the suffering, there has been something so beautiful, so powerful, that it has transcended everything else. I don't know if I can describe adequately what it was exactly, but I know it had to do with family and friends coming together in love with faith and hope that runs deeper than our deepest fears. Ironically, it's as if we all were awakened out of our own comas, out of our own numbness to what life is really all about. No more just getting through the day with our to-do lists never being completed and spilling over to the next day's agenda. Suddenly, we were awake and aware, dropping anything and everything that had seemed so important, so necessary, to gather in a room together, mostly on our knees. Connection with each other and with God was all that mattered. That is still all that matters.
Yeah.
We're,
Goosebumps.
we're human.
Perfect.
We're
Yeah.
human beings, and we can't stay and live in that sense of awareness, how fragile and vulnerable we all are. This illusion that we're safe and everything's going to be okay and the plans we're making are going to happen the way we think they are. We can't live in that like, what's going to happen next? Anything could happen. But, there was this heightened sense of it's so important to love each other, hold on to each other, allow God to speak to us in this time, strengthen us through this time, comfort us. And it happened together. I had a friend who worked for my mother-in-law, Rosemary Clooney, um, and she also was hit by a car very shortly after Ryan and suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. She did not have the support that Ryan had. She had a couple of friends that drifted away very quickly, and she did not make the kind of progress that Ryan did. She died pretty shortly after that. And it struck me how important it is to live your life maintaining the connection to the people that you love and love you, and also your connection with a spirit to be able to walk through these kinds of traumas. And this woman didn't have any of that. And we were so fortunate that we did have each other and that we did have this deep faith that
Yeah.
we still have. And watching you through it, I won't read the whole thing there, but
Hey, Debbie, I need to take a break right now. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but will you remember what you were going to say? And we'll be right back. Okay, Debbie, I hated to interrupt you. Can you pick up right where you left off? Do you remember?
I do remember what I was going to say. And that was that I have always wondered if, tragedy or trauma came into my life, would I know the presence of God and the strength and the peace that I feel like we're promised? Would that be there? And I realized that you don't experience it until you need it. It comes when you absolutely need it. And I saw it for you. I saw the strength every day. I mean, you were digging deep because you had to and because you were so desperate, and God was showing up for you. And it was really like there was something that just drew me to want to be around you and be close to whatever that was, it was encircling you and emanating from you. And I just believe it was God's spirit giving you what you needed to walk through the unimaginable. And I remember taking great comfort that no matter what, when we need that strength, if we avail ourselves and allow it to come, it comes.
Absolutely. It reminds me of another thing I want to share that involved Lori. About 4 months after Ryan's accident, he was still in a hospital. And we got another middle of the night call, and he had had a seizure, the first of many seizures that he had in the beginning. And that was a new experience. We hopped in the car, Mike and I, in the dark, driving to get to the hospital. And I was again just stomach clenched, like, what is this all about? It was a new thing. And Lori had sent me a song I hadn't had a chance to listen to. And I put that, back then there were still CDs, and I popped it into my car. And it was a song that I'll go through this valley if you want me to. And it was just this wonderful song of faith that when you can't see where you're going, you just keep walking and you hang on to your faith. And it was just what I needed at the right time. So again, it was not just the song, but the fact that Lori had sent it to me, and then the divine inspiration to plug it in when I was heading into this new fog. So that's what you're talking about, is being met in the moment of your greatest need. And that's what we've discovered is the grace as you go through pain. But there's no promise you won't have pain. There's no promise that you're not going to have trauma in your life. but you can tap into a source, and that source gives you strength to get through it. So that's what we're talking about. And we believe that's God.
Mhm.
Whatever your higher power is. Um, but anyway, I would like to maybe pivot here and just say that Ryan is so much better. I want to leave on this very uplifting note that Ryan, there's a photo that I hope is being dropped into this podcast, but Ryan is healthy. Ryan is verbal. Ryan eats and laughs and can read. And he has, like you say, so much that's been restored to him. He's a joy and a blessing.
He's funny.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, he's different. His short-term memory is really short, and he has certain behaviors that make life difficult at times. But really, he's content in his soul. His essence is unchanged, and that's truly a blessing. Um, and because of all the learning that goes on when you suffer, um, I have been able to write a song. And this was a gift from my daughter who gave me a gift to write a song with a Nashville musician. She gave it to me on Mother's Day, 2020, when we were all kind of on lockdown. And people were selling experiences on Zoom through Airbnb. And she bought me an experience. And unbeknownst to me, I had some lyrics that were gifted to me uh, so that I could go into that Zoom call with this musician and contribute something. So it's called Wordlayer. And I'm very excited that by the time this podcast is out, it's been released. But I've been able to record it with you guys, and that makes it extra special. Do you guys have any comments about the experience of going back in the recording studio, singing together? Yeah.
For me, it felt like going home. It felt like getting back on a bicycle. I hadn't ridden for a while, but it just felt so comfortable and so right. And, the fact that we were able to be in 4 different little cubicles that were divided from each other on 4 different mics and sing the harmonies and breathe the same, breath patterns and all that stuff, just because it's like muscle memory. We'd done it for so long that it even shocked the producers how quickly we were able to record it and not have to go back and patch things up and, work on it for a whole day. That was so gratifying to me. It was like, we still got it.
Well, we did a lot of recording in our younger years. Those of you who have no idea, we started off singing as teenagers and did a lot of recording and Christian music and some other secular music until Debbie's career took off and we started having kids and moving to different parts of the country. So this was very special. But the words of Wordlayer come from a place of uh, going through suffering and how to respond to loss. And some of what we've talked about on this podcast um, is the beginning of what those lyrics are. I mean, that's where the lyrics came from. Did you guys have fun recording?
So
Debbie?
much fun. Well, it was a beautiful, moving experience to be together in the studio doing this. You having, written it, Daddy was there, and that was very poignant for us. Mama was not, but we all knew somewhere she was so delighted that her 4 girls were back together making music.
Totally.
And the time after the studio in the hotel rooms and eating and seeing family members and laughing. And it was just, it was a real highlight to be able to all be together in that way. Very, very special.
And I just want to say that as this song comes out, I'm going to end this program and then it's going to be added to this podcast. There's a music video. You can get Wordlayer on any of the live streaming platforms, which I don't understand, but most people do. But I just want to share it with everyone and hope that you'll stick around and watch the video of Wordlayer, and you'll see our Father in it. And please share it out with your friends. It's out for the world now, and it comes from a deep and special place of gratitude. And I'm so grateful to you three for being on the song and for being with me today.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Love you. Love you too.
Absolutely. When your happy turns to tears and you're broken by your fears, it's so tempting to declare that all is lost. You can speak into creation and build a new foundation, laying word upon the cross. Spend some time with your Creator. Are you grateful that He made you? Do you know that you're a creator too? Your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour, and you're blessed to have the choice of what they'll do. Lay your words down with intention. Pain can motivate invention. Look at nature, how she cycles death to life. That's our model, life returns. Will it be better for your words? Are they life? Are they love? Do they beautify? Spend some time with your Creator. Are you grateful that He made you? Do you know that you're a creator too? Your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour, and you're blessed to have the choice of what they'll do. Heal the sick, heal the body, heal the mind, and heal the soul. Now they can work the other way, so please be careful what you say. Instead of walls, build hospitals. We need each other so. Spend some time with your Creator. Are you grateful that He made you? Do you know that you're a creator too? Your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour, and you're blessed to have the choice of what they'll do.